now all of a sudden my screen went dark, but okay, whatever. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to see everybody. I'm going to get so distracted because there's so many people from my life here that I love. And I'm sure some of you are here just to heckle me, and that is good too. Do I have the capability of sharing my screen?
I think you do.
Oh yeah, I do.
Right, you
Okay.
got it. Okay.
Yes. So how is that? Maybe I'll just go with this. Okay. Is that in the full screen there now? Okay, good. I can see Emily. Emily, you're going to be my canary here. You have to be very expressive with your face and let me know.
I got you.
Oh my God.
Got you.
It's all on you, Emily. Because I can't just talk to an empty room. Okay, so and I think Jasmine will monitor the chat, so feel free to throw things in the chat, because I'm not sure what people want to know. I'm trying to cover everything. I'm going to start at the very beginning and go to the top. And as Jasmine mentioned, I've been to a lot of residencies. You'd think I had produced more by now, but I'm really a residency junkie. And an evangelist for it. And I kind of see telling people about it as a way of kind of doing literary reparations, because a lot of us don't know about them. And so I really want to demystify the process for folks. So, and the term residency and retreat and conference and all things get mixed around. So what I'm talking about specifically are programs that provide temporary residence, and it's usually anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months, though some are longer, and workspace for a variety of artists. Some are just for writers, and then some are for multiple arts, which I actually really like, to work on specific projects. It's generally not a conference or a workshop. So, the summer conferences you go to, you study with somebody and you produce. That's not what this is about. And there's usually no product required. You don't have to show that you've, produced so many pages at the end. Though with some art ones, they do want you to have, produced, a sculpture or a painting or something like that. But the idea is that you're enough of a professional that you're going to take advantage of the time that's there to work on your project. Or like me, you're going to go sightseeing and have a really good time. And it is different from the idea of the writer in residence, which is often a different project, a different thing. And so those are the exceptions here. So sometimes there are workshops you can take that have then a residency attached to them, like an extra week to work. The writer in residence thing is usually a semester or a year-long appointment that comes with teaching, and someone's called the writer in residence, but that's different from what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about these kind of short-term places that can happen anywhere around the world or the country. And then there's also the idea of artist residencies, which are often non-residential affiliations. You might have access to a studio, a library, something like that, maybe for the entire year, but that's a non-residential thing. So you'll hear the term residency used a lot, but I'm really kind of talking about colonies and short-term residencies. There are generally 3 types: the fully funded, which is what you're going for eventually, the semi-funded, and then the unfunded, and they all serve their different purposes. So with the fully funded ones, those are usually the most prestigious. They're the ones that have had the most money. They're usually the hardest to get into. And of course, they look really good on your CV. Oftentimes transportation is included, even if it's international. The residency is generally free. Food is usually provided. And sometimes there might even be a stipend. With the semi-funded ones, the residency itself is usually free, but you might have to pay for your own travel and your own food. You might end up having to cook for yourself. You might be given a stipend to work towards it, whereas in the fully funded ones, there might even be a cook who's preparing things for you. And then the unfunded ones, sometimes there'll be some food provided, or it might be subsidized. Transportation is not paid for, and the residency itself is not paid for. So it's essentially like renting a place at a subsidized rate. So you would pay for how long you want to be there, and and it's essentially almost like getting an Airbnb, but it's better because you still have to apply for it. It's prestigious. It's usually cheaper than on your own. You're still integrated into a community and seen as an artist. And you can list it as, as a fellowship. And the ones that are unfunded that you pay for yourself are usually have a shorter turnaround, and you can, they're more of a guarantee to get into. So sometimes when I don't have time to go through the whole long application process, but I know I have a project, I'll go with one that I have to pay for myself and see if I can get it funded in other ways as well. Okay, so how do I find residencies? I think this is what we're going. Yeah. So there are a lot of great kind of resources where that vet them. And I think this is really important because more and more residencies are popping up. And my first one I went to was completely like nutty. It was just some crazy person who wanted to have like artists in her house, and then she like lost interest, and I was like stuck in the middle of Texas with a crazy person. So one of the things I advise is going through some of the formal organizations. So Residencies and Alliance of Artists Communities are formal organizations, membership organizations that residencies have to belong to. And so it's kind of an oversight. So if you find someone and they are affiliated with these residencies, it's much safer. You can, you're not being ripped off. If something does happen, you have recourse, you can complain to them. And so I recommend going through Residencies or Alliance of Artists Community. Residencies is very good for international residencies. The great thing about them is you can search by genre, by location, by level of experience. Are they accepting beginning and emerging writers? Do they have a combination of writers and artists? Do they allow you to bring families? You can do all of these sorts of things. And then some of them will even email you their deadlines. You can join their newsletter. And so you can get like a weekly email of, oh, these are the applications that are coming up. So it really kind of helps keep you on target. Trans Artiste is also good for that. So those are the top three. If you're an outdoorsy person, and I hear some people are, I wouldn't know anything about that. The National Park Service also has a residency program where you can actually stay in a national park, which to me sounds like a nightmare. But my writing partner has done that. She actually stayed in the Grand Canyon and was there alone after the park closed. Rivet is a great resource that kind of vets these places as well. And looks at all different types of funding, as well as kind of writers in the school and different kind of traveling aspects, as well as touring artists is also good at that. If you want to travel and kind of see what opportunities are there. Mapping Residencies is a kind of a crowdsourced look at residencies, and they also have a Facebook page so you can get support and kind of get the skinny on things. And then the Poets and Writer database is a bit unwieldy because it also lists conferences, but it is focused just on writers, but it's not making a distinction between residencies and conferences. Piney Woods Atlas is a small kind of, it's a website, and there are also these small books, and they're for very kind of small, unconventional residencies. So it might be like a little farm that has like a little cabin or a trailer that someone could stay in. And they've done it geographically by each, the regions of the United States. So it's very kind of DIY. And if you're an adventuresome type, maybe you can like help out on a farm or something like that. It's a way to go as well. Okay. The New Poets and Writers, which has my friend Patricia Smith on the top, just has a whole big special section called Writers Retreats. With lots of tips too. So I recommend picking that up. And if you don't already subscribe to Poets and Writers, it's really a huge, wonderful resource that you would want to do it. Another thing to keep in mind is Catapult magazine online has an article called The Person of Color's Guide to Navigating Writing Residencies, which can be really great because a lot of these other resources don't kind of pay attention to that. Piney Woods in particular. I'm like, oh, do I want to go out into the woods? And so if kind of safety is a concern, this is a good place to look for these sorts of things, just things to consider. Okay. How's my speed, Emily? Am I intelligible?
Yeah, you're killing it, Faith.
Okay.
Doing great.
Thanks. So another thing is to kind of, when you're choosing a residency, to think about what your needs are. And so your goal, do you want to be in solitude, or do you want to have a combination? Do you want to have interaction? Do you want to have instruction or mentoring? Maybe you're not ready to be by yourself and just work on your own. So that's one thing to consider. Or maybe you're someone who doesn't like the kind of enforced solitude that they do have. And then think about what matters when you are going through the databases. Location, do you want to be international or domestic? Do you want to be urban or rural? The costs, the duration that's available. Do they have special facilities and equipment? A lot of the artist ones have like really kind of wonderful equipment that you probably couldn't afford on your own. So it's great to have access to that. Some of them allow for families or for partners, both either romantic partners or partners that you're working with. My writing partner and I often applied residencies together internationally, and we, work on projects together, or we propose a joint project as well as our own work. Is it important to you not having to find your own food and cook? That can take a lot of time, particularly if you're abroad and it's a country you're not necessarily familiar. You might have to spend a lot of time going to the market and shopping. You might like that, or you might not like that. Another thing to consider is where you are in your project. How long does it take you to adapt to a new environment? Is it going to be too disruptive that you won't like it? There is a lot to be said for being someplace where you're only known as the artist. And so you can really, really focus on it and turn other things away. But other people will have difficulty kind of writing someplace new. So that's something you want to think about. What do you need in your writing space? Do they offer, oftentimes, artists get separate studio space, but oftentimes they'll just give the writer is supposed to write like in their own bedroom. And can you work that way? Do they have other space, libraries that you can work in, or are you given a dedicated studio to write in? And how much stimulation will you need, and are they providing? Things that you can avoid are some the rules and expectations. Usually there's silence during working hours, or what's considered working hours. Oftentimes you might be in proximity with other artists. Sometimes you have a place to yourself. In some of these larger residencies, there can be tons of people. And as you know, artists are crazy. So like, do you want to interact with them? And then there might be some sort of expectation, like you might have to do a public presentation, propose some joint project. So just see if there are any kind of community-based things that they want you to do. And then finally, the logistics of the date and the turnaround time. The prestigious ones usually only have applications once a year or twice a year with a long lead time. And so that might not work for you, which is why if you really need to know you're going to be able to get someplace, then you might go for a paid one or for a less prestigious one. I do a combination of both. So generally, most applications require just an online form that's pretty just kind of basic logistical information, a statement of what your project is going to be, a personal statement about you, and then a work sample. Sometimes they want a CV or a resume, names of references, or letters of recommendation. I have judged a lot of residency applications, and the things I would say that are really key is that that your statement makes it clear that there's something that the funder can invest in. It's either a compelling project that has a very clean elevator pitch that they can understand, or you yourself are a creative person with a promising career. So those are two things that they can really latch on to. It's not that I want to do this and I'm interested in exploring this. What is a real specific thing that they can see that they are investing in? And your project can be, an ongoing book that you're working on, or you can design something new that's geared to this particular residency period or this location. And that works a lot, particularly for the arts, if they're doing location-based arts. Or like the residency Sacatar in Brazil, they're really looking for people who are interested in being in Bahia, Brazil, and really being inspired by that and engaging with that. And so you can come up with something new or something that's tied to your work, but it should be done in that place. It makes sense there. The other thing they're looking for is a really clear, achievable plan of what you plan to work on. And it's something, that you could accomplish in that time. They want to fund things that they know will get done. And then lastly, a compelling argument for why you need this particular residency now. This is the moment. You know, you've gone this far, you've done all this research, and now you need the quiet time to be able to like do the writing, or this is the time you need to be in this environment and engage with the people in that area, but really why this is the perfect moment for you right now. And makes it more compelling, as opposed to like, oh, well, you know, they could do this at any time, or, you know, maybe come back later when you're a little more clear on what it is you're going to do. Additional things to keep in mind with the application. For your writing sample, it should be your best work that you know that fits within the specified length. You don't want to go over the length, and you don't want to be putting a lot of unpolished work that doesn't make sense just so you can meet the length requirement. Ideally, it would be something that is a sample of what you plan to work on. If you're saying you're doing a project about, you know, religious traditions in Brazil, but then you give me a series of like profiles about, I don't know, something that's completely different, it's hard to gauge like how is this gonna fit in with what they're trying to do. So with all applications, we're really kind of looking for a sense of the project is already underway. And if you already have something, if you have some writing samples for it, it's more compelling for why you need it now. If you don't have anything, then you have to be able to make an argument for why you're not submitting any samples of the project that you're trying to work on. References would be any writing professional who can attest to the importance of your project, or someone who can attest to your work ethic and your ability to play nicely with others. Because oftentimes it's really just to make sure that in this controlled environment where, you know, you might be sharing a house with 5 other people, you're not going to go off the rails and, like, you know, cause a problem. So they're really looking for that thing as well. And then think when you're writing your bio, your artist statement, don't just think about your artistic accomplishments. If you're an emerging writer, there are lots of other things that you can talk about that make you compelling. It can be your personal experiences, your travels, your expertise in your topic, your, you know, community skills. And just think, they oftentimes in their statements, they say what kinds of projects they're looking for or what sort of people they're looking to support. So really think about that. Do you fit the bill? And you can make a compelling argument for yourself, even if you don't have a lot of publications. And a lot of places they're trying to encourage someone. They may want to be your first residency because they're looking to discover new voices too. So really read the room and then tailor your statement accordingly. Other things is to just think about the actual logistics of the place. So if they're saying that, you know, it's communal living, then talk about your communal living experience. If they say you're going to be out in the middle of the woods, you know, make it clear that you know how to do that. You know, what your experiences are being alone, being with other people, being, you know, urban, being rural. Another thing to make it easy is to always have an updated CV or resume and a project statement of different lengths. Just always have that on your computer, because if you find something, if you hear about something, you can apply really quickly. Anytime you're doing something, just update your CV. Once you know what your project is that you're working on, you know, have a elevator pitch of it, have a 100-word statement of it, have a 200-word statement, because all the different applications ask for different lengths of things. So if you have it already, it can just be really quick. And I just recommend that you just have one day a month that you do all of your applications, get together with a friend and just knock them all out. So it's not taking away from your writing time, or it doesn't seem like this really huge thing that's always, you know, looming over you. If you're a student and you're in school, every time you have a, you know, a successful class or a good interaction with a faculty member, just ask them to write you a generic recommendation and have it set to a portfolio, either to Interfolio, or if your alumni organization keeps an office of letters, just have those letters on file, because that's the thing that will stop you from applying the most, is like, oh my God, I've got to get recommendations. That's the thing we don't want to ask for. And so just, you know, having them online while someone can remember who you are just makes it a lot easier. And then once you've got publications yourself, then you can start writing them for your friends or your writing group, and you can just kind of, you write for them and they write for you, and it just makes it easier. Its general rule of thumb is to start with the residencies that are easiest to get into, that are asking for emerging or beginning artists, or you might even have to pay for, and then just work your way up to the more prestigious ones that are harder to get into. And keep in mind that summer will always be the hardest time, because that's when all academics are trying to go to residencies as well. So you might apply to the harder ones in, for the winter session if you have that flexibility in your job. Ooh, okay. I think I've really sped through this. Okay. How to residency well. So once you've been accepted to your residency and you've said goodbye to your family and pets, things to keep in mind is take some creature comforts that are going to make you feel comfortable there and allow you to personalize your space. And so, you can't count on them having, your favorite foods or your favorite teas or coffees or, anything like that. So just, kind of comfortable, comfortable clothes, just anything that's going to, make you, let you set up your space. One of the first mistakes we make is we're like, oh, that time that I pulled an all-nighter and wrote like a crazy person, I got 8 hours in of writing. Now, if I go to the residency for a month and I multiply 30 times 8, I'm going to get this amount of work done. You can't work at that intense level at a residency. So you just have to you probably want to build in a schedule for yourself, and then make sure that you have physical breaks. Often residencies are in really beautiful, locations. And so take a walk on the grounds, do something that's physical, take a screen break. Oftentimes, if you're at an artist residency, there'll be other art things happening. You can kind of participate in that, go into the studio and do things that get you out of your head and into your hand. But really try to kind of shape your time really, very cleanly. And so make it very clear, if possible, that you won't be available for work calls, because people just think, oh, she's just over there. No, you're unavailable. You're on retreat. Just say retreat. People will understand residency. You say I'm on a silent retreat. Try to, say that to your family as well. And if you have, non-writing business that you need to do, such as email and all that, do that, after your good working time. If you work well in the mornings and the afternoons, then schedule all of that stuff for the evening, and just really kind of try to bracket when you're going to do that. And, make it just really clear to everybody, this is a great opportunity and you really need to put your work first. Have one of those vacation things on your email that says, I'm hiding somewhere writing and I'll get back to you later. Spend time getting to know the people at the residency, because this can be really fantastic networking for the future, but also accountability. If over breakfast you say what you're going to work on, and then at the end of the day you talk about how your day went, it really helps you think of yourself as a practicing artist. Your job is there, to do your work, not to, be playing solitaire on your laptop. And also, if you're stuck with your project, it's really great talking to other people who might, who are enthusiastic about it or who have other approaches to their work. So it can be really, really inspiring. And if you have the opportunity to share your work with each other in either formal or informal salons, really take advantage of that, because it can just lead to wonderful collaborations and, ongoing friendships, that sort of thing. Plan to take at least a day off so you can explore the area where you are and just, get out of the studio completely and just take advantage of where you are. Often there are people in the local community who are wondering, who are all those weirdo artists in the big house? When I was in a residency in a castle in Spain, at the top of the hill, we would walk down to the little village and go to a bar because it was the World Cup. And so we would watch the World Cup with everybody. And at the end of the night, we're like, we live in the castle. Who wants to drive us home? And everyone's like, oh my God, I've always wanted to the castle. So someone would always drive us up the hill, and then we'd let them see the castle. And it was, it was a win-win for everyone. So it can be great to really, connect with people around, so so they see why you're there. And to that, I would also bring like little hometown gifts, just something that represents where you're from, little things that you can carry to give to people at the residency. You know, oftentimes there are cooks, there are housekeepers, there are neighbors that you're running into. There's, that lovely person at the market who always keeps the cheese aside for you. So just, all of these ways in which you can just, create good feelings with the locals. Ooh, I got through that fast, man. Okay, so stop the share. Okay, everybody go home now. So, do people have questions or things that they want to add, experiences they've had?
Faith, can I ask a question?
Sorry, go for it.
What is a good way to find, like, I don't know how you want to describe it, but sort of lower tier, I forget the word you use, but residencies?
Yeah, I mean, you can, in all of the links that I provided, you can do a search for the level. So if they accept emerging or beginning. Also, I think like in submittable, some of them seem to pop up. Definitely the Piney Woods and some of the smaller websites that aren't, the ones that are more, that are starting, that, are more, that they themselves are starting off as residencies. But again, you don't want to go to something that has no reputation at all. Because, you can end up in the situation that I ended up with. Where some crazy woman just like bursts into your cabin and like takes your bed and says, I've decided the residency is no more. And yet you're like stuck in the middle of Texas. So, or my friend who discovered peepholes in her bed in the room that she was staying in. So yeah, but there are plenty of ones that are really reputable that are, encourage emerging, like Mesa Refuge, which is right, just up here in Northern California, just an hour north of here. And it's a great place to start too, because it's for 2 weeks long and it's for emerging people. So it's a really great way to get your feet wet and test, does the residency setup work for you? Writing Between the Vines, which is a local thing that places people in cottages in vineyards around here. That's another one where they're encouraging, new people, beginners, that sort of thing. And then I think if you're on some of these websites or at Facebook, the Piney Woods Facebook, people also talk about new ones that they've discovered that they like as well. Yeah, I'll drop the links in.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I have a question. Thank you, Faith. That was very informative. Really appreciate it. It's such in my post CCA life of trying to apply for residencies has been a bear. I wanted to ask you about if you could talk about some of your favorite ones, shed some light on the really positive experiences.
Yes. Okay. The one I mentioned in Brazil, Sacatar, I love. It's on an island outside of Bahia, on a beach. It has its own private beach. Not private, it has its own beach. It's definitely not private. And it's, and it's not luxury. I mean, it's nice, but it's, electricity goes out and, you have to like walk on a muddy path, and, it's an island where, we're like, it's not a rich island, but it's a beautiful island. And the people who started it are really they're American, and they really love Brazil and Afro-Brazilian culture and want to share it with folks, and kind of build kind of cultural connections. And so their whole approach to it is you all arrive at the same time, you get integrated into the local community, you know, get invited to go to like lots of artistic things. They're interested in people who know about the rich history of, you know, Afro-Brazil and stuff like that. And so it's beyond a residency. It's also kind of this really positive force in the community, which I really love. Where else have I loved? Well, the one in the Italian Castle, but that's one you can't apply to. You have to be nominated by somebody and invited to. And so that one was very nice. Hedgebrook, which is just for women writers, and it's up on Whidbey Island in well, you apply, you're applying to it. Yes. In Washington State.
In progress.
Yeah. Ironically, that one is one of the hardest ones to get into precisely because it was so open. So they were like, it used to be they would just pull names out of the hat, or they would just do it on a writer's statement. It was just like any woman who wouldn't normally have access and time to something like this was invited. And if you were interested, that was good enough. But it's become so well known that people who would never apply to other residencies apply to Hedgebrook. And so now it's like really hard to get in. Ironically, they're a victim of their own good messaging, but they're a great place as well. What else do I love? I'm gonna have to like look at my list of places that I've gone to, and I'll address that later. I did really like Mesa Refuge, the one that I was referencing earlier that's really nearby. I was there in November, and it's up in Point Reyes. So one, lots of oysters, but two, it's really beautiful, and you get like a little she shed. And it's very charming. Yes, France. Okay, France. Where did I go? Okay, I wouldn't recommend that the one I was in this most recently, because it was in a little village. But if you can go to Camargo, which is hard to get into, that's in the south of France, in Cassis. So, I mean, it's the south of France. Enough said. So that one is really great. Okay, La Napoule. There are a lot of them in France in general, I'd have to say. Oh, Story Knife. Yeah, in Homer, Alaska. Oh yeah, a lot of people know it. That's got too much nature for me, but if you like nature, I think that one would be good.
Didn't you do one in Miami, Faith? I feel like you meant at the Betsy or something.
Oh yeah, the Betsy Hotel. It's just 1 week usually in the Betsy Hotel, which is in South Beach. Yes, and then they and they give you like food vouchers and stuff like that. It's hilarious. It's like you're like in South Beach, like right on the thing, like who's going to write, but you know. But yeah, I liked it. It was great. It was great. My students probably know. I gave a list of all the ones I had done in my class, so they probably know which ones I've been to better than I do.
Faith, what was the most recent one you attended with the wine fountain?
Oh, yeah, that was invitation as well. That was a Black women's writing retreat at a Black-owned inn in Chesapeake Bay. So that we were the inaugural people, and it was invitation only. But everyone should go to the hotel. It's really beautiful. Oak Tree Manor, I think. I just put Ragdale in the chat. That's one in Evanston, Illinois, and that also encourages beginning writers. And it's lovely. It's 2 old houses kind of on this little prairie. And then you can take the train into Chicago. It's kind of sweet.
Faith, there was a question that I thought was really excellent. Do you have any recommendations about the writer's statement, or do you know of any books that include directions on how to tackle that? Because that's something that people struggle with a lot.
Books. I don't know about books. I'm sure there is one right now. The book that Taryn, is there anything, or Taryn or Kristen, is there anything in the books we're using in class?
Yeah, the Poets and Writers book.
Yeah. Do you have that handy? Or, but she's disappeared from the screen, so I assume that she's going to get it. I know Taryn. So this is a great book I'm using for this class, What to Do with Your MFA anyway, and it pretty much covers everything about the writing life. It comes out of Poets and Writers magazine, and it's kind of a great resource. It's like 400 pages that covers every aspect of publishing, craft, book proposals. It's got great advice from all sorts of writers, super diverse. So, and in general, talking about how to, how to apply for grants, how to make a strong statement about yourself, kind of what to say about yourself. That's something we've been working on a lot, as well as, our platform, our brands, these sorts of things. So,
Can I ask a question about evaluating whether or not you're going to, how would you evaluate a residency that you have to pay for? I mean, I know it's different for everyone because everyone has different means, but I'm curious how you would look at how you would look at that choice, I guess.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Sorry, I just found one that I really love. Searle's Place in Boise, Idaho. I was there last year. Amazing. I was terrified to go to Boise, and it was incredible. And you get a whole art house to yourself in like the art live district. It's like on the river. It's like amazing. Okay, so for me, it's about the flexibility again of like, I know I want to go with my writing partner. We know that we only have a certain time that we can go. And there's some places we want to go to. So we only apply, to places we want to be. So we've gone to France. We've gone to, we were supposed to go to Boise together, and then she pulled out on me, and I was like, what? But I'm glad that she tricked me into going to Boise. Right now we're applying to Morocco and Italy. So if there are things you really want, like, the flexibility of time, who you're going to go with and where it's going to be, for me, it's worth paying because it's everything I would want. I would want to go to Morocco anyway, but now I get to go through the guise of a residency, have an entree into the community and go with my friend. And so that's often why, or I have a project that I have to get done. Like I have a contract. I know I can't do it at home. I need a residency. And it's last minute, so then, because for these other ones, you have to like apply 6 months in advance, so for me, when I need the flexibility, that's when I'll pay for it. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And if you're not getting into anyone, like if you can only apply in the summer where everybody's applying, stuff like that, maybe you just need your foot in, and like once you've done one, then other people. That's one of the things that happens too when you're talking to other people at residencies. So many people have been to this one and this one and that one, and so then you start to find out like, oh, what are the tricks to this one, and what sort of things are they looking for, and when's the best time to apply, and so you become more savvy the more you go to them as well. And so just getting your foot in the door. You just don't want one of these kind of trick ones where like you're in with a partial scholarship, but now you have to pay this incredible amount. I'm like, either it's funded and I know that, or I choose to go to this one where they have their finances very clearly upfront what it is. But there should never be this kind of bait and switch kind of thing. Yeah, Italy was invite only. And I'm looking through the others here. The one I also went to one in Door County, Wisconsin, which is like a big summer place. It's not a beautiful house because it was furnished by someone's grandma, but you get a whole big house and you can take your family. So if you've got parents that you're caring for, or if you have kids, you can have the whole house. And it's all these cute little villages along the lake. So that was nice. Took Virginia Center for the Creative Arts is okay, and it's good for emerging people. Jurassic is one that's right out here. That's a little harder to get into. Banff just did a call for, I think, people who were working like graphic novels, I think also Indigenous writers, but it's up in the resort of Banff. There's this beautiful kind of art center there. That's always really gorgeous. I love that. Yeah, Jurassic's lovely. And I have a friend who's at one right now. She says it's really incredible. Oh, I've forgotten what it is. But it seems amazing, really well funded as well. Okay, great. Other questions?
Faith, do you have any experience with the ones that have tiers, like tiers of attendees? So I'm thinking of Sewanee, where there's sort of 3 different tiers of attendees. And I'm wondering, I think the best word for it would be weirdness. Like, you know, because people know who's funded and people know who isn't. And I'm just curious if you've had any experience in that kind of environment, and if it's still sort of worth it to meet people who maybe are a little further on in their career than you are. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so Sewanee and Bread Loaf and all those are more like conferences that I think maybe have like, they're the conference with maybe the residency aspect built into it. And so I don't really attend conferences at this point, and I haven't been to either of those, but I was just at this Black Women's Retreat that I was with. One of the people there works for Bread Loaf, and almost all the other people go there on a regular basis. And I was like, wow, I used to think that it was like totally elitist and all this stuff, but they love it now. Wow, sorry, there's like a dog fight happening on my front yard. I don't know what's happening. So, but they were talking about how great it was, and that there was kind of amazing networking. And so for them, it was worth it. And it did seem like a lot of things happened there, and they could also bring their families. And so it was worth it. It was worth it to them. So a lot of time, if it is a conference one, look at who's going to be there. Then I guess maybe just kind of talk to other people and see, is it stratified, whereas you would never be able to have contact with them, or is it known for, being really friendly? I did teach at like the Esalen conference, the one that Cheryl Strayed had started, and it was really, free flowing, and, participants got to hang out with the faculty, and it was just this really kind of, lovely way of being. And so I think that's why a lot of people paid that hefty price to go back over and over again. So yeah, if you're trying to get in with someone, it might be worth it to go to a conference.
Thank you for answering my out of class question.
That's okay.
Hello, Faith.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey, Gabby.
Hey, Mr. Singh. I have a question. Do you know any conferences or residencies in Mexico?
I do, but the ones I know about are pricey. I've been looking at a couple in Oaxaca. And I was like, "Ugh, you have some nerve charging that." So and then I know about another one that had one BIPOC fellowship. And then there are a lot of conference or people doing their own kind of workshop, taking you down for a week here and there. A lot of them in San Miguel de Allende is a really popular place and stuff like that. And so there are a lot of cities where artists gather and they have their own kind of thing. So what would be the best way to kind of know about that? Yeah, I know about I know a lot of people who are leading workshops in San Miguel, but I don't know about any residencies down there. But I think if you go to Resartis or Transartis and do a search for Mexico to see kind of what is there.
Thank you. Thank you so
yeah.
much. Yeah, I'll check it
And
out.
then tell me what you find.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I did my own in San Miguel. I mean, I
Oh.
basically just ended up just renting a house and inviting other people to, I just did a DIY because I was like, I waited too long, blah, blah, blah. So I just rented a house from VRBO and then just invited friends to come down and have, stay for different amounts of time in the different rooms. I just got like a 3-bedroom house and worked it that way.
All right. That's a great idea.
Yeah. And it was totally affordable.
Oh, nice.
Well, I mean, affordable is relatively, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
yeah, that was a possibility as well.
Appreciate it. Thank
Sure.
you.
Faith,
Else?
I
Yeah.
had a question. Could you talk more about what Interfolio is, or if CCA does anything like collecting people's references or?
Yeah, I don't think CCA does that. Because when I asked my students about it, they were like, what are you talking about? but my old alma mater does. So, but I'm not sure if they're continuing to do that. But I think a lot of people are just using Interfolio now for jobs and residencies. That seems to be the thing. I've been looking at like job listings on AWP, and they're just like, have Interfolio, which is you just open a portfolio with them and have your transcripts and your letters of recommendation sent there, and then you can just usually go through and like click the ones you want sent where.
Okay,
And so yeah, that's the one that I think most organizations are recognizing and using now.
cool. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And that's really a good thing, because that's the thing that stops us from applying over and over again, is having to get those recs, those letters. You're like, oh.
Okay, there's a question about a project outline. So I'm forgetting who asked, but someone asked if it's a novel they're working on, what would a project outline look like for that?
It's interesting.
Or I guess even creative nonfiction and memoir.
Right. I mean, I think it can be a combination of either what you plan to work on or what the project itself entails. Because usually I'm used to applications asking for a project statement, which is like, this is what I'm working on. This is the importance of it. This is where I am in my process. This is what I hope it will do in the world. This is why I need to be working on it now. This is how far I've come, that sort of thing. I've spent X amount of time in doing the research for this, and I'm at this stage with it. And now I need the quiet, reflective time. So a project outline might be, if you're going to be there longer, they want to know what you're going to do with your time. So it might be these various stages of the actual completion of the project itself. But of course, then they would want to know specifically what is happening in each one of those stages. So I guess they're learning more about the work through the goals. But great. Oh, thanks, Jasmine. Yeah, you all should just apply to CCA and we'll take care of all of those issues in class for you. And Julia's like, okay. Any other? I feel like I haven't given very useful information. Does being accepted to residencies help your chances to attend more? Definitely. Yes. If you haven't attended, but yes. So anything that you've got, you just put like forthcoming. Yeah, exactly.
Faith, do you think having more publications improves your chances?
It depends. I mean, it's like, it depends what they're looking for. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I remember when the first time I applied to McDowell, and they're like, for the work sample, they're like, just send your book. I'm like, "Oh, what?" I'm like, that's kind of wasteful, isn't it? But okay, and I didn't have a book, but so that was very, very daunting. But I applied anyway, and I got in. But they're definitely saying, like, McDowell and Yaddo are saying, like, we're the cream of the crop in the U.S. and people come from all over the world now for it too, and so they're very clear on, you know, on what they want, and the CV and the qualifications of the person who applies, you know, matters. In other places, they may not even be looking at that application statement. They, you know, they might send the writing samples to former residents to read and rate, you know, and then they'll just kind of put it together, and, you know, they might have a rubric in which your application form or your experience counts a certain amount. If you have a lot of publications, that might show that you're very serious about your craft and you're really committed to it. And so obviously they usually do want to give residencies to people who will make use of the time. But you know, I also read for some place where the guy's statement was hilarious, because he's like, I've, you know, been to all the best residencies in the world. I've been here and there and here and there, and I've been published in the New Yorker, and I can't understand why I can't get into this residency. He was like so angry. And the residency was like, you know, talking about like being, you know, integrating with the local community and being interested in the culture of the community and all that kind of stuff. And he was just like, my bucket list, damn it. You know, and so, and he just didn't get it, like, every single time. And he kept applying year after year. I think friends had gone. So it was a really good example of how publications had nothing to do with what mattered to that particular residency.
Yeah. It sounds like he was kind of annoying. Also, no one wanted him to go.
He was annoying on paper. He might have been lovely in person. They have slots for ingenues. Who has slots for ingenues?
They do. I think they do. I think that everyone loves to feel like they discover somebody, right? So, I mean, I think, you know, even when I went to Yaddo, there were people who had scarcely published anything, but they were just, you know, they were on the cusp of something. And that's why they were there, because they were clearly identified as, you know, the star was ascending. I don't know.
That's cool.
Be surprised. You'd be surprised.
Exactly. You never know.
Okay, so I think we're pretty close to 7, and Faith, thank you so much as ever. You're so generous, so organized. You could unmute yourselves and just like roar with gratitude.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I sounded like a crazy person, but I'm so gratified everyone showed up to see my craziness.
It was terrific. It was terrific. And thanks everybody for attending. If you've got ideas of other stuff you want, let me know and I'll see if I can make it happen. Yeah, definitely. All right. So we're adjourned. Thank you.
Adjourned.
Bye.
Thank you guys.
Everybody.
Bye. Guys. Bye.
Bye, Kenyatta. Anna. Oh my God, Anna's here.
I know. It's like, this is your life, Faith.
I know, it's hilarious. I can't believe all the people who are here.
It's so
I
great.
like that.
I just wanted to thank y'all. I'm from the class of 2007, and either we didn't have stuff like this back then, or I wasn't taking it serious enough. So I really appreciate, I'm up late, I'm in Atlanta, so it's about 10 o'clock now. But I wanted to say that I work at Georgia Tech and coach undergrads on business writing now. So I did get a writing job, but want to focus, you know, more on getting published and that side of creative work. But I also coach my students on LinkedIn. So I'm saying that I'm about to go out of country for work in March, but sometime if you want me to do a workshop on like very basic, because I've been looking up people's names on Jasmine's workshop and in yours, and a lot of the people aren't on LinkedIn. I know that's not always the #1 place that writers might think to be.
Yeah.
but especially if people are doing freelance work, it's where people are looking to hire. So that's
Oh,
something that
Actually a really interesting topic. I like the idea of sort of like your professional portfolio and the places where you might establish a outpost, right? Like LinkedIn. And I'm not very knowledgeable about that world at all, but I've heard that LinkedIn is getting more, there's more activity there for writers.
yeah, so I'd be happy to do a Zoom intro level, intro to LinkedIn or upgrading your LinkedIn.
Okay, I'm gonna check you out on LinkedIn. Mine
Yeah,
has
I just requested you. Yeah, I just requested you.
I don't look at it. Do you look at yours, Faith?
my
Your
LinkedIn?
Yeah. Do you have one?
I have one. I hardly ever look at it. When I go to LinkedIn, I don't understand how to work it. But the young woman here who asked me about residencies in Mexico, she like messaged me on LinkedIn to tell me she had graduated and to thank me for being her teacher. It was like the
Aw.
sweetest thing ever.
I'm gonna request.
And I was
to
like,
add
oh,
you.
something good happened on LinkedIn.
Well, I'm on it all the time because I'm also managing our alumni network for the program I work in at Georgia Tech. And so I'm always telling my students the importance of networking and giving back to the current students. And I'm like, okay. And so that's part of what got me like re-energized to see what CCA is doing. I'm like, here I am teaching all these students and talking to my alumni about staying involved with the community. And I'm not doing anything with CCA. So
Now you are
making that possible. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to add you. I request to add you both on LinkedIn, and then think about it. And if that's something you want me to do for one of these workshops, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, Anne. I really like I like that. I'm going to kind of play around with it in my mind.
Okay.
Of course,
Cool.
I have to figure out how to get on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So Faith,
All
I'm gonna I guess I'm gonna log out unless you need.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Anne.
I was trying to save the chat, which I think I already did. That's the only thing I wanted. Because all these
I'm
people
still
said hi.
recording us. So I'm gonna stop.
Excellent.